What's going on, Savages? CJ here, and I'm at the Garage Gym here in Round Rock, Texas. And today I want to talk to you guys about the lat pull down, specifically how to get the most out of performing the wide grip lat pull down for the sake of muscle hypertrophy. So in this video, I'm going to be telling you some of the tips and tricks that I give my clients that I think really can enhance this exercise. Let's get to it. What up, Savages? CJ here, and today we're getting into the lat pull down, or specifically I should say the wide grip lat pull down for the sake of muscle hypertrophy. Now look, first things first, we need to get this out of the way. There's lots of ways to perform this exercise. There's lots of opinions floating around, and I'm not discrediting other methodologies. I just want to tell you the way that I like to implement this in certain instances with my clients, and some of the cues that I give them to really, I think, get the most out of the mechanic and really to overload the lats through shoulder adduction as much as possible. Here we are, lat pull down, all right? So first things first, we're obviously gonna be using the wide grip handle, and we need to address grip because there's lots of different ways that you can actually grab the bar. There's also lots of different handles. But even here on this wide grip handle, we could go with a supinated or narrow grip. We could go with kind of a narrow grip pronated. We could go a little mid grip, or we could go really wide on this grip. Now I know Jeff Nippard recently put out a video where he was discussing this, and he suggested that a mid grip is actually going to be ideal for the activation of the lats. Now this might be for the sake of being able to have a little bit better leverages or kind of in between leverages that allow you to do more weight or put more load on that area, and so that's probably why some of those EMG studies are showing greater lat activation. And with that said, I think that that's not the entirety of the story, and I'm not discrediting, you know, the method of using it more of a mid grip, but for me, I actually like to have my clients often, believe it or not, go an exaggerated wide grip. So really reach out here to the edges, almost to where the hands are almost falling off. And now the reason for this is, for me, I've noticed that a lot of people have a hard time really dialing into the lats, specifically with that shoulder adduction or in that frontal plane. And so as we're going through this compound lift, you'll notice that my elbows are obviously bending into flexion. That means my biceps are going to play a role in this exercise. So the way to minimize that would be to actually grab wider. The wider I go, the less flexion at the elbow, and therefore the lats are having to do the brunt of the work. And so this helps me to get them really cued in and dialed in on actually feeling that sensation of the lats through this joint action. And again, this is something that I commonly will use. Not to say I don't use mid grip, but I think for a lot of people, especially starting off, I think that the mechanical disadvantage of the lats is wider, and I think that this also really helps them get that kind of connection of what that sensation feels like from the lat. So we're gonna have them go exaggerated wide grip, and the next cue is as they come down to get in position, you notice you have your pad here on most lat pull downs. I have them actually separate the distance as close as they can. They really crowd the machine to where their stomach is actually making contact with that pad. A good way to know if you're in the right position is that in this starting position, I cannot see the bar. It is out of my line of sight. And so if I can see this bar, if I can actually have this in my eyesight, then I know I'm not in the right starting position. I'm tilted back a little too far. So I want to make sure I'm crowding this pad, pushing all the way up against it so it's over the top of my body. Now, the way that I like to think of this is that it's essentially a reverse barbell overhead press. So if anybody that's overhead press correctly knows that as we're pushing up, we're slightly getting out of the way of the bar, and then we're rocking through the hole, and so that bar should be out of my line of sight here so that it's all lined up over the top of my body. Well, basically I'm doing the same thing. So exaggerated wide grip, I'm gonna crowd the machine out of my line of sight. I'm gonna start from this very exaggerated dead hang position. I'm gonna move my head just far enough out of the way and make contact with my clavicle. There's no need to really go any further than this, but make contact with my clavicle, and then I'm gonna go in reverse. So there's this kind of tilting, rocking slightly forward and backwards. Now my last cue is going to be about tempo. Now look, there's lots of ways you could do the tempo here, and I'm not really saying you got to do it super slow or anything like that, though the slower that we go, we know that this is going to cause more time under tension. It's going to make it a little more challenging in a different way. I don't really go one way or the other too much. I typically am not going to go super slow, but I'm also not going to be super ballistic about this. I think that's unnecessary. But I will actually try to get rid of any sort of stretch reflex by encouraging a pause at both the chest as well as the top of the movement. Well, a stretch reflex basically is kind of an elastic energy that we can use to really, pump through the next repetition. You'll see this with like a touch and go bench press versus a slight pause on the chest. That potential energy, that potential elastic energy dissipates it as heat if we actually give it just a minor pause before going into the next rep. So my rep would actually look something like this. Again, crowding the machine. I'm gonna start from this dead hang position. I'm gonna get just far out of the way, touch my clavicle, pause, 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 pause. And my goal is to not at all sacrifice at any point my mechanics or my levers for greater weight. Now look, those are that's the cues that I like to use with clients that I find that helps them to get a lot out of this. The next thing is, and this is a little bit more intuition here, but the truth is, my stance is I don't see any reason to actually sacrifice, really mechanical disadvantage, if you will, for load. Rarely to ever is anybody training to be stupid strong on the lat pull down. So going through these kind of ballistic range of motion exercises or these kind of crazy pulls, though I'm not saying that it's not somewhat effective to muscle hypertrophy, but I find it to be unnecessary, being that you're not trying to be a powerlifter on the lat pull down machine. You're doing this for the sake of muscular overload, and there are some mechanical changes that you can add that really give you the same overload without making you look like an idiot bouncing around, and it's also going to be a little bit safer as well. So I think trying to get the most out of understand the biomechanics and increasing those levers, minor little pauses, making sure that that's in line, wide grip, all of these things are going to precede adding weight. Again, this is intuition though. I'm not saying don't train heavy. I'm saying that you need to appropriately train heavy on this type of exercise, in my opinion, to get the most out of it when it comes to growth. I'd love to hear you guys' opinion. Again, this is not the end all be all. This is the way that I like to encourage clients to do it. These are some of the cues that I use on the floor in real life at the gym. But I'd love to hear your feedback. What are some of the ways that you like to do it? And did I miss something? Is there something maybe I could add to it? Love to hear from you guys in the comments. We will holler at you at the next video. Thanks again for you guys watching our content. You're fucking awesome. See you savages later. Bye.